you so much. I am really excited to introduce a fabulous team from DCFS Lancaster office. We have, I don't know, people that I would truly call like my friends, great colleagues, friends, collaborators, and I so appreciate all of you for being here today. I'm going to introduce Lisa Whitecrow, who is the Regional Administrator for the DCFS Lancaster office.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a tall order to have a keynote right after lunch, so I hope that you were able to indulge in some of those cookies and maybe that sugar got you a little hyped up, because we don't want any sleepers in the room. Also, please bear with me. I've been suffering with a voice thing since March, so I'm hoping that it's going to cooperate a little bit today. I've got my trusted drink here. First and foremost, I just want to say to you, Judy, thank you for this amazing, amazing event. Yes. Last year, for anyone who was here last year? A lot of hands. It was amazing. You continue to outdo yourself. So thank you for making us a part of it. And for my team, please join me. This is going to be a little bit of a unique sort of keynote. I know that oftentimes in a keynote, there's one person, they present, they tell and speak about whatever the topic is. Today, you will hear from me and my team, because I would not be here doing what we do if it were not for this team of the most incredible, incredible powerhouse of women behind me. Yes. Thank you. And so in no particular order, and I know that there's some familiar faces here, and actually this is perfect that Lydia is here. There are no mistakes, and how I met Lydia is no mistake, and it is from a presentation that I did on risk stratification, which is not what the topic is today, but Lydia was in the audience. And she called me to the mat a little bit, just a little bit. She had a lot of great questions, and I should say, although she's covering it, it is Lydia Sincor Templeton, Esquire. But what it also does not say is missionary, cultural broker, friend, partner, and all the other things that should come when her name is written. And it is my absolute privilege, it is divine intervention that in that meeting that day, I was very taken by her, and then I sought out to find out who she was afterwards, hunted her down, and I did. And I emailed her, and I said, let's get together. And then I brought in my team, and the rest is really history. So I'm very pleased to have Lydia. She was here last year. If you heard the speech, you know why. She's back with us today. And then, who bears no need for introduction, if you're with DCFS, but Dr. Wendy Weigman, who is here from the California Child Welfare. Yes, definitely. The California Child Welfare Indicators Project, and we brought Wendy in when we were preparing for the day, and then of course as we're going over data, it was like, Wendy, can you fly down from Berkeley and join us? And she made it happen, so we're very appreciative. I apologize if I'm kind of leaning this way. Okay, I'm gonna try to do a little better job here. And then I have 3 of my 7 ARAs with me here today. Oh, sorry. In non-DCFS language, that means Assistant Regional Administrators. We speak in our own language and code, if you didn't know. And that is Dominique Denny, Deborah Kaiser, and Zellery Woods. So we are going to be talking today about what we do in the Lancaster office. Some of the work that we do, and you're going to hear a little bit about the dent that we hope that we're making in a very, very serious issue, and an issue that really, I don't think that there's a day that goes by that our work does not keep in mind the disproportionality that African American and Black children suffer in the child welfare world and in the arena. I don't like to say we're proud of the work because somehow that just feels like a horrible word to use in talking about such a very, very serious issue. I will say that I feel, I acknowledge that we are doing the beginning parts of our work. It's a lot of work, and we are far from being close to where we all need to be. And so I try to remain very humble in where we are. And so today you're going to hear what we do to contribute to better outcomes for African American and Black children that interface in our world. So again, you're going to get a little bit of some data, you're going to get a little bit of kind of what we do, you're going to get to experience what I hope you will think is a great video, but I'll just leave it at that for Dominique's part, and then I'm going to share a little bit of my personal why. So we want to thank you all. Again, grab a cookie if you need it, and Zellery, the mic is all yours.
Okay, I'm not quite sure about the logistics here, so the computer here, okay. I'm not supposed to do anything with that, right? Okay, I just need to go forward.
Left and right. Yeah, it'll go slide by slide.
Okay.
But when it gets to the video, let me know. I have to bring.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So I'm Zellery Woods, and it's a pleasure to stand before you this afternoon. So we're going to start off by talking briefly about equity and what that means for the department and the Lancaster office. I was introduced to ERDD, which stands for Eliminating Racial Disproportionality and Disparity, back in 2008 when I started with the Pomona office. And the ERDD work started long before 2008. In fact, for many years, the department has explored strategies to address the overrepresentation and poor outcomes experienced by Black children in foster care. When we refer to equity, we must understand that equity is obtained when equal outcomes for all groups or individuals are obtained. It cannot be achieved by treating everyone the same. We must acknowledge that everyone does not have the same starting point. And the journey to equity requires us to examine, acknowledge our differences between groups, and provide the supports necessary for that group to work towards equality. If you look at the slides before you, we can see that Black children are overrepresented among children reported to the Child Abuse Hotline, those entering foster care, and those who are actually in out-of-home care on any given day. While Black children ages 0 to 18 in the Lancaster service area only represent 22% of the entire population, they make up 42% of the children with allegations, 45% of children who actually enter foster care, and 48% of those children who remain in foster care on any given day. When we look at these numbers, we must ask ourselves, why is this happening? The journey of foster care starts with a telephone call to the hotline. DCFS staff does not go out into the community and look for families to bring into the system. Thus, it's the communities who triggers DCFS involvement. The community is the driving force behind the disparities that we see. Thus, it's imperative that we build up the resources in the community so that families can receive the supports that they need without DCFS's involvement. During this presentation, we will highlight the work that we've done in our office, and we will share, as Lisa stated, data that will show how our efforts have actually been effective in reducing out-of-home care entries for Black children. We still have a lot of work to do, but the first domino has been activated. I would like to direct your attention to that bottom circle with the 48%. Again, that's a disproportionate number of Black children who remain in foster care. This is the next domino we must tip over. We in the Lancaster office have already started to pay attention to permanency, and we've implemented strategies to facilitate exit from foster care with a primary emphasis on reunification with parents. And unfortunately, when we're unable to return children home to their parents, our next steps are to look at adoption and legal guardianship as options. Now I'm going to take you on a little journey. It's a little lengthy, but I want to give you the history of the equity work that we've done in Lancaster. I was fortunate enough to be promoted as Assistant Regional Administrator in the Lancaster office in the year 2018. It was August of 2018. And one of my first assignments was to lead the ERDD initiative, which I gladly took on. I started off by reviewing the data, which showed children were entering at approximately 3 times the rate of their representation in the Lancaster community. There was already a team in place. I searched them out, recruited some additional participants, and started a work group in the office. For me, there had been a lot of talk about ERDD, a lot of talk about, oh, there are too many Black children in foster care, but it didn't seem like anything was happening. So I decided we need to take action. We must do something. I expressed my concern to my team about the number of children that were entering care. And I suggested that we began to tackle this issue on the front end, meaning when the call comes into the hotline and the referrals are sent to our office for investigation. I presented this roundtable idea to my team, and we proceeded to determine how we were going to go about implementing this process. Our purpose was to create a brave space to engage in dialogue with staff and community partners to discuss the referrals when children were at risk of being removed from their parents. We wanted to take a deeper dive into what was safety, if there were immediate safety risks, or if there was just risk and complicating factors. We also wanted to hone in on the strengths of the families and their natural supports and use those items to mitigate safety risk. We also wanted to consider alternatives to removing children from their families when safe to do so. We used the forum as an opportunity to coach our staff to best social work practice while appreciating the African American experience in this country. We wanted to better engage families, and we also wanted to have intentional conversations around our personal biases that definitely drive our decision making. The first roundtables in the Lancaster office began in November of 2018 and have been held weekly since that time. Moving on to 2019, we realized we had embarked upon a process that we had never experienced before. It was sort of a grassroots effort, and there were many lessons learned along the way. One of the first things that we came to understand is that we needed to create an environment for these conversations to take place where our social work staff would actually find value in the process and see these roundtables as an opportunity to receive ideas and suggestions as they work with families. We also wanted them to see it as an opportunity to team with others, including the community, as they make decisions regarding the families they were working with. We worked closely with our internal coach developers We have a coaching guide that we utilize to process referrals, to have discussions. And so we used our coach developers to help us organize those discussions at our roundtable. We also began to just challenge ourselves to have courageous conversations around implicit bias, cultural sensitivity, and the need for improved practice among all levels of staff, not just our social workers, but us as a leadership team took that on and understand that we all needed to be engaged in these conversations. We also worked during that year to build support around our ERDD efforts by identifying culturally sensitive service providers, specifically around mental health and parenting. We sponsored 12 of our staff and community partners to be trained in the effective Black parenting curriculum so that they will be able to offer that program to our families in the area. We also work to increase our collaboration and partnership with faith-based organizations. An intentional effort to educate staff. Believe it or not, you know, a lot of staff just don't know what ERDD is. They don't understand disproportionality and overrepresentation. So we held a brunch. As you know, food gets people to come, right? So we had a wonderful brunch in April of 2019 to educate our staff around the ERDD initiatives. And at this brunch, we also had community partners. And the event ended with a call to action. And we had several children's social workers who expressed their interest in becoming ERDD champions in our office. In late 2019, so I had the first idea. We're going to come together every week and talk about these referrals, right? So in late 2019, I had another bright idea. And I went to my boss and said, hey, Lisa, I think we need ERDD units in our office. And without hesitation, she said, go for it. She just gave me, you know, leeway to do whatever I wanted to do. And thank you for trusting me. And so in January of 2020, we implemented 2 ERDD units in our office with 10 social workers. I want to introduce Kobe Nash. She's one of our ERDD supervisors. So these units work to support African American families with open cases. These CSWs are keenly aware of the African American experience in the United States, the dynamics of institutional racism, socioeconomic issues of families, and they understand our, because I'm going to own this, our distrust of systems. The workers seek to empower families to change their negative behavior patterns that contribute to unsafe environments for their children. The goal of the units is to facilitate early engagement with parents, to connect them to the resources tailored to meet their needs, and to limit the children's time in foster care. Also in 2020 was a big year. So we started our ERDD units in January, and by March, we were all at home. COVID hit, right? But I'm proud to say we did not skip a beat. We were able to move our roundtables from in-person onto the online platform. We continued with our supportive groups, Effective Black Parenting and Father Strong, moved onto the online platform. We continued to keep our community partners engaged, and in fact, participation at our roundtables increased because it was easier for people to jump on. They didn't have to drive anywhere. We worked very closely with our Office of Equity Program Manager, Kimberly Lewis, who's in the room, she used our process as the framework to implement roundtables throughout the county. Moving on into 2021, we implemented the 4 disciplines of execution, also known as 40X. 40X is a strategic formula designed to meet goals on time and with excellence. This process requires focus by identifying a wildly important goal, which we call the WIG. For Lancaster, our goal was to reduce the number of African American and Black children entering foster care by 10% between a 12-month period from September of 2021 through August of 2022. In order to do that, we had to identify lead measures. So as our team, we got together, how are we going to get there, right? So let's do what we're already doing. That was the roundtables. But what we wanted to focus on is how can we improve our roundtables? So our lead measure was to hold quality roundtables. And for us, that meant having the right people at the table participating in the discussion. So we were just very intentional in increasing community partners. We had our prevention and aftercare. I think that's how we met Ms. Judy Grant. She began to participate. We have educational liaisons, for example, and some of our co-located staff from Department of Mental Health and Department of Public and Social Services. Our second lead measure was around father engagement. And our goal was for at least 90% of all of the referrals or cases being brought to the roundtable would have fathers identified and or paternal relatives fully engaged. We wanted to highlight the importance of father engagement in our practice and decided that this element should stand on its own. For every referral or case that was brought to the roundtable, a discussion around father identity and engagement took place to ensure a comprehensive assessment and service delivery was made to the family unit. During this process, we also realized that 30% of our removals were actually on open cases. And when I say that, I mean we have open cases where children are actually living with their parents. There are some times when, something happens, there's a safety issue, and we must remove those children. So we wanted to make sure we captured those families and not just the ones where we were investigating referrals, and we decided to implement a continuing services specific roundtable, which takes place twice per month. Throughout the year 2021, we continued community engagement. In June of 2021, we decided to hold a cultural broker convening. If you can imagine, during the pandemic, there wasn't a lot of in-person interaction, and by June of 2021, we were kind of starting to gather again. And I think this was our first kind of big in-person gathering with our cultural broker event. We wanted to highlight and celebrate the wonderful work by our cultural brokers. There were approximately 40 participants at this event, and the majority of those participants were from the community. I am pleased to share that at the sunset of 40X in August of 22, we exceeded our goal of the 10% reduction of children in out-of-home care. We actually achieved a 35% reduction and 98%. Yes. Tip the domino. And 98% of the referrals and cases brought to the roundtable had fathers identified. And that is definitely worth celebrating. We continue to connect with our community stakeholders, provided education within the community around our efforts. We conducted presentations at community events, such as the Best Start Antelope Valley Stakeholders Meeting. I, along with our one of our deputy directors, Mr. Frank Ramos, conducted an ERDD presentation at the Lancaster Social Equity Commission. And our ERDD supervisors actually presented at the Antelope Valley Resources Training Panel. Moving on to the present 2023, we just continue to assess and reassess and reassess, because we have to constantly evaluate our work and its effectiveness to determine how we're doing and to improve our process and our practice. We, as an office, are very intentional in providing ongoing support to our staff to enhance their development and also to strengthen our community partnerships. As for the domino effect, we are finding staff are viewing families differently, and they are appreciating families for who they are and being intentional in considering the cultural component and how it may influence how our families are showing up. This work is not always easy, and at times it definitely has its challenges. But moving the needle, or should I say tipping the domino, requires consistency and commitment, and it can be achieved if we remember our why. And having said that, I'm gonna turn it back over to Lisa, who's gonna talk a little bit about her why and leadership and some other things. So I'm gonna turn it over.
Okay. Oh, it's not this many pages. I don't want to scare anybody in the room. Okay. So you just heard a little bit about what we're doing, and I know that many of the offices are doing tremendous, amazing work as well. So I just want to acknowledge all of the other offices from within DCFS, because I know that there's hard work going on. I was going to do some talking points, but just also in light of my voice, I decided to write out my whole thing, so I'm going to read it to you. When Judy reached out to me and asked if I would be the keynote speaker, to say that I was humbled was an understatement. I have presented on this topic and what the Lancaster team has been doing with our ERDD work many times before over the last several years. As the regional administrator for the office, it feels like it's just what we do. Oh yes, thank you, Wendy. Yet the feedback has always been that others need to hear about it, learn from it, that we need to share it and duplicate it. Thus, the domino effect is in play not just for children, but for other DCFS offices, agencies, individuals, and perhaps even broader. Thus, excuse me, I immediately let Judy know that I would not do this presentation, and I would only accept if my team accompanied me here today, as without them the work would not be the same. They are the true champions of the work, boots on the ground, as Angela Parks Piles would say, heart in it, breathing it, truly, this is their why. Allowing me to steer the ship to ensure that we work to eliminate disproportionality for African American and Black children coming into contact with the child welfare system is our mission. So while I'm being given the platform to share a bit about myself today, please know that I stand before you, honored and privileged to work with these ladies every day. I don't specifically recall how or when I learned about ERDD. However, that just means that there wasn't a name to what I could so plainly see and what was apparent. There were many cases with African American children, many. What matters is that I got it. And Zellery had rallied a team and was doing the work. Now that I was at the helm, what was I going to do with the responsibility to support her, the work, and help move it aggressively, as time is and was of the essence? But let me go back a little. I was raised in the San Fernando Valley as a Jewish girl whose parents were both natives of Los Angeles, or are natives of Los Angeles, I should say. They were raised in areas near Fairfax High School, just for the sake of reference, for those of you that know that area. Sorry, I keep hitting something over here. I apologize. and they spent the majority of their upbringing surrounded by their large families with many aunties, uncles, and cousins, especially for my mom. Their elders had immigrated from Poland, Russia, and Germany, and I think at that time probably stayed pretty much to themselves or within the Jewish community where they could tuck themselves away and stay safe, or at least they hoped. Obviously, while I didn't address it, I know that Judy had shared with me, and Wendy, thank you for your words. This is obviously a very sensitive time for all of us, and I recognize that. However, they were not raised with hate or to exclude or not to include, and thus, these were values that were passed on to me, and hopefully I've passed them on to my sons, who I'll speak about in a moment. So my early memories of being raised by my parents and even being around friends did not include negative thoughts of others. We were just in a bubble. However, I was definitely raised in a predominantly white area, going to school with 5 African-American children, fellow students and friends, with whom, thanks to social media, I'm still in contact with today. Let me think about before Facebook, how would this all happen? But we were just one large group of friends and peers, and if anything, I felt a bit on the outs, as most of their parents were extremely successful and affluent. They were in the music and sports industries. My parents were of the middle class, my mom as a legal secretary, and my father, after some very hard times and bad choices in the film industry, was then in sales. My recollection is of a happy and welcoming times and an innocence, just liking each other as people, just as friends, just as human beings. When I joined DCFS in 1994, and I love that Trish is here because we started together day one, August 29th, 1994. I don't want to hear if any of you say, I wasn't even born then. I've heard this so many times when new staff come on board, it's just very freaky. But I was given a caseload of 13 cases, which if you know DCFS terms, that means 13 children. I recall so many of them to this day. Trish and I could probably really go down memory lane. I believe that 11 of them were African-American children. From my upbringing and even with attending college and then pursuing my master's degree before coming to DCFS, I was immediately drawn to the families and really the mothers on these cases that I was assigned to. And when I think now back to my work with the mothers, fathers were not as involved from the DCFS realm. It doesn't mean that the fathers were not involved, but DCFS was just so mother heavy. I was young, single, and had boundless energy, and I just connected with them. They were intrigued or really entertained by me, and I think in the same way that I hadn't had much experience with many African-American people, these moms hadn't had much experience with a white Jewish girl from the Valley. But it didn't matter. I loved them, and they liked me in as much as I guess you can like your social worker, but if you feel and you believe that they want best for you. And why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't we all want what's good and what's right and what's fair for each other? Several of those moms reunified with their children, and I vividly remember securing one mom an apartment on Cloverfield Boulevard in Santa Monica. My own mom donated a set of dishes and some other items, and we set out to rebuild her home. It was a very, very exciting time for her and her children. When I say that I can recall it, I can visualize going up the steps. The whole thing, and it was an incredible Section 8 program at that time. And I remember her parents, who lived in Venice and who had cared for these 5 children while she worked to deal with her addiction. And I know that it really warmed their heart to see her regain custody and live together as a family. And my roots and my love for others came together for this calling. In 2004, I became a mother as my firstborn son came. I had already been with DCFS for 9 years at that time, and the one thing that I knew, but was privately totally petrified about, was that DCFS would ever come to my door. Growing up, I was not raised with any type of physical discipline, and so while I also raised my boys without it, and by then I had 2 sons, or I have 2 sons now, I wouldn't even spank them because I knew what could happen should the wrong set of circumstances end up happening. So I would literally chant to my boys, "We do not hit in this family." Right, boys? We do not hit in this family. So that if they were ever questioned, they would repeat the mantra. And certainly, this would keep them safe from a social worker, but I think this is now what we call coaching. And we're very suspicious of that. I have certainly, am I wrong? I mean, but I really did. I have certainly observed times where I have seen on my boys, I mean, they're boys, a mark, a bruise, something that I'm like, where did that come from? Like, how did you get that? Or I remember when I was taking my younger son to speech therapy and somebody opened up a door like that, and he was right there and he was little and he got clocked in the head with the door, and it was within 5 minutes this egg shows up on his head, and the colors of the rainbow are showing up there too. It's totally bruised, and the panic was real. I felt the need to get him back to school and immediately explain and defend what had happened, lest somebody suspect that I had caused it. The mere thought that anyone would take my children from me is a feeling that literally leaves me without words today. My older son is now 19, and I remember when he turned 18 thinking, okay, I got one through without a call from us. And my younger one is 17, and he'll be 18 in February. And I pray all goes well and I make it till then. The weight and the responsibility and the power of a social worker is just huge. It's just huge. There is no mother or father out there that does not feel the exact same way as me. And so knowing the risk and the ultimate price of my decisions made me fiercely determined to ensure that DCFS did not come to my door. For so many African American families, their ability to ensure that DCFS does not come to their door, let alone the outcome once DCFS does, is not the same, but it needs to be. This has to be our mission, and it has been our mission. It should not be any different for any parent, period. The work to ensure that the changes that are needed has not been easy. You have heard Zellery share the path that we have been on, that she created, and that this team has grabbed the torch with her, and that we carry on. Cut to the last 8 years in Lancaster, as of October 15th on Sunday, and these feelings guide my work and my message and my leadership today. Ensuring that families are treated fairly with the same opportunity for positive outcomes is what drives us. It is not perfect, and we have much work to do. But what is special about Lancaster, and maybe also for so many of you and from the chair in which you sit, is that we are totally committed to it, like all of you. We feel it, we talk about it, we cry about it, and we work it every single day. We do not always get it right. And then the community lets us know. And they should. They should. And we don't run from that. We welcome the opportunity because we know that we need to be checked, and that we need to be corrected, and that we need to do our best, because a little boy, those little boys, are counting on us to do them right. When I became the regional administrator in November of 2019, I was just returning after 7 months in an acting role over another office. Hi, Tara. Our office was reeling from a high-profile fatality. As many of you know, Lancaster has been affected by on many occasions. And the staff were in a state of loss, grief, fear, and the work was piling up, which is always the remnants of when something like that happens. People just are paralyzed with fear. But during a phone call about 6 months later with Justin Lee from Casey Family Programs, he shared with me, since he was taking over for Wendy, a different Wendy, that his understanding of the role of a regional administrator is that 50% of your time is spent in the office. That's what you were talking about, Kimala. And the other 50% of your time is spent with the community. I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, like, no, that's not how it's done here. We don't really like kind of work like that. And I was not kidding at that time. That was not the way things were being done. Yes, Dr. Muhammad had a key card to our office and would walk up and down, and she was, I thought that was the most bizarre, like, what is she doing with a key card into the office? That's Dr. Muhammad, by the way, if you don't know her. But what Justin was suggesting was not the way that someone like me, who had been with DCFS for 20 plus years, had experienced the work. But guess what? He was right in every way, and I started branching out. Through our risk stratification work, I started speaking at various events, meeting others from the community, just forming relationships and partnerships. I started inviting them to come to our roundtables to observe and then share in a debrief so that we could receive their feedback and input about their experience with us. Trust was established through a shared energy and commitment that we must do better and that we do not want to bring children into the child welfare system unless absolutely necessary. And the trust goes both ways, I hope and believe. Each of us has their story of why we came and why we stay, and so much in between. There's no speech that I could make here that would tell you everything about me, and I don't know about all of you. But in Lancaster, whatever the reason that our staff are with us or our families come to our attention, we constantly message that we must treat others with respect and kindness, and that we search for what our families need to be their best selves. As Zellery stated, there has been an absolute shift in our practice for all children, how we look at safety, risk, prevention, supports, well-being, fathers, paternal families, the list goes on, and our outcomes are shifting and improving. This work is not just for a small group in our office or those social workers that stepped up to join our ERDD units or for African American and Black people to solve. This is an all of us issue, and we are here to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing your story. I'm Dominique Denny, one of the ARAs, as Lisa mentioned. So now we're going to take you on another journey to observe one of our roundtables. But before we do so, we just want to give you a couple of disclaimers. As you're watching, actually this is a couple of roundtables that were recorded, but just to let you know that while you're watching, you may start to feel like you're not getting the complete picture of why this family was presented to the roundtable, and just understand that that is intentional. We, to maintain confidentiality, we did not want to disclose any of the family's identifying information. So if you feel like you're wondering, well, we're not getting the complete why of the worries by DCFS, just understand that that was purposeful. This is just meant to provide a snippet of what our roundtables look like. Next, while our participants were informed that we were recording these roundtables, what you are going to observe are real, authentic, genuine responses, reactions. This was not scripted. This is not reenactments. These are authentic feelings that were shared by the participants on this roundtable. So with that, if you could please dim the lights. One second. Thank you. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the DCFS Lancaster Office ERDD Roundtable. At this roundtable, we will discuss families with open referrals and cases with children at risk of being removed from their family home. It is our ultimate desire to improve child welfare outcomes for all families with a keen eye on African American Black families who are impacted differently. We hope that by including an intentional consideration of the family's culture and experience, we will be able to improve the way African American Black families experience interactions with our child welfare agency. We understand it is vital to include you, our community and DCFS partners, in this process. Welcome to the roundtable.
At this time, we are going to ask our community partners to please unmute and introduce yourselves while the others enter your name and position in the chat.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Perry. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Valley Oasis.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Melgar. I'm the Program Manager for Prevention and Aftercare here at Penny Lane.
Good morning, all. I am Dr. Arisha Muhammad Lewis. My agency is A New Vision for You. I am the Culture Broker Coordinator for SPAs 1, 2, and 5.
Christian Green, I'm Policy and Advocacy Director for Sanctuary of Hope, where we focus on TAYU. We are a resource and application center on 10th Street West in Avenue K. So, if you know any TAYU, if you have any folks that need some help, we're here to, I'm a local pastor in the area. But I am a proponent of DCFS. I am a former DCFS person that was a part of the foster care system, but now I'm a full-time professor at West LA College. So thank you, DCFS, for the work that you've done. Peace.
Good morning, everyone. I am Judy Grant, and I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion at Penny Lane Centers.
And I think the first up is CSW Brittany. As Deborah mentioned, supervisors out today, but Brittany, are you able to tell us the demographics of the referral?
Yes, I can. So demographics, you just mean like the family composition?
Yeah, just no names, age, gender of the children, parents as well.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Is there a referral history or?
Yes. So there is previous referral history. I believe there's 4, not including the current referral. The most recent referral was in 2020. It was regarding allegations of physical abuse. That was ruled as unfounded. There's no previous case history, and there was a evaluated out referral in May regarding general neglect, but again, that was evaluated out and referred to family services.
And the reason for this current referral?
So father took the child to the hospital. The child was at AV hospital in the ER. At that time, law enforcement came out to interview the child, to follow up due to concerns that the hospital had based on the injury. The initial concerns were due to child abuse or neglect, because it was reported that the child stated, quote, "My dad hits me."
And the reason we're here today, obviously.
We wanted to bring it to the roundtable. We're not anticipating at this point in our investigation removal, but what we're really looking at is trying to figure out how we might be able to shore up some other needs of the family through connection to community resources, or other avenues. The family appears to be struggling in a number of areas where some intervention might be helpful, but not necessarily our intervention. So there appears to be some food insecurity issues at various periods throughout the month. They're not totally without, but it gets very tight. Appears to be a theme of lack of supervision or appropriate supervision.
There is some concern because we have had previous EO referrals, infos to CSWs, and then I just got an info to CSW about what Deborah talked about. So the younger children either wandering outside, playing with trash, and then a parent not being the one to go and bring the child back inside.
So with all the information you do have currently, what's our main worry?
Our worry is that the younger children are at risk of future severe harm, like the 5-year-old child just experienced, due to that lack of appropriate supervision.
Well, let me just say this. In Black families, when there's large Black families, you're going to find very often that the older children are going to be governing, if you will, the younger children. I'm the oldest of 17. I always had a job.
But I don't want to put that label on as being negligent, reckless, putting her children in harm's way because of an accident. None of us intend for that to ever happen, but it does.
What would take away your work?
At this point, it would be more insight. Dad, it doesn't seem like he has insight yet. He's really open to learning and having that community engagement. So I don't say that from a purely negative capacity, but he's really not understanding how dangerous, what happened with the 5-year-old was, how severe it could have been. So my hope in presenting was more to see if there was anything maybe I wasn't thinking of or anything that he could participate in, so that he can understand a little bit better what the potential harm could be and what appropriate supervision is, how that's different for maybe a 3-year-old than the 14-year-old.
Okay, so we have an effective Black parenting class coming up in the next couple of weeks, and it's virtual. So that would be something that perhaps we could pass along to Father. And then, as Vicki stated, the Father Strong program would probably assist as well. So just putting those things for him around in the community and with your worry statement so that it doesn't become a danger to the children in the future. So I think putting him in those community programs should assist him with a better understanding of what you're seeing or stating in your worry statement.
I'm going to forward you, Brittany, the flyer for the dedication event that Christian is talking about. I see Sarah nodding her head also, and that is this Friday night. So
awesome. Thank you. I'll send that over.
And I will send you the flyer for the effective Black parenting.
I do have a question. What other supports do they have in place in terms of maternal and paternal relatives that may be able to assist in providing supervision, as well as ensuring the children's safety and well-being?
Yes, so they've identified, and I've been able to, speak to and meet paternal aunt and maternal aunt, and that's another huge strength. Mom and dad haven't just identified those individuals; they're a really integral part of the family system, and they show up.
Lisa.
Since I'm seeing also, and Sarah is talking about food insecurity, if you don't know yet, Brittany, and to the CSWs who may not know about this, I want to make sure that I elevate that Penny Lane has the poverty alleviation grant, and that is an incredible, incredible opportunity. I know Anthony's on here and he probably mentioned it, I might be stealing it, but let's make sure that we get you that information. The referral process is very easy. It is a lot of money into the hands of the families directly in their
And Sarah, you had your hand up, and I see the chat's lighting up, but go ahead, Sarah.
If the food insecurity is also causing housing instability, our problem-solving team can do short-term assistance to try to stabilize their housing situation, and as well as offering other referrals within the community that can help with food.
And Brittany, there is in Lancaster, it's called Maravilla Foundation.
Okay.
They help with utilities. So if the family perhaps meets that criteria with Maravilla Foundation, help pay for utilities, maybe some leftover money for food and whatnot.
Awesome, thank you.
And one last thing I did want to throw along the lines of, food, clothing, and access to money. I believe Lancaster in City Hall has access to a community emergency fund. I'm not sure what it's fully called, but I believe families can go and apply for a similar grant to help out with an acute need.
Awesome, thank you so much.
And then, Brittany, I'm not sure if you saw in the chat, Christian shared a link to a resource, freefood.org, California, Lancaster. So I think that probably, Christian, come off mute if you can, provides a list of local food banks and food resources.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all free. There's a whole list of from Lancaster to Palmdale, what's available for the family. So it's easy to access. I believe it's user friendly. So if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you so much. I'll do that.
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, I just want to say this is a beautiful thing to be able to see the community and the department and all the resources and all of us working together like this. This just warms my heart. So thank you to all of you, because it's so needed that we wrap ourselves around these families in our community. So I'm really touched by what I'm seeing this morning.
And I just want to piggyback on Dr. Mohammed's comment, especially in light of her incredible event that we must acknowledge from last week, where she is recruiting cultural brokers, and they were, it was a full house, and we're very excited about the future. But what I really just want to say, and I hope that all of you on this call, whatever your role is, takes note that is why it is imperative that community be on these calls, because look at the plethora of resources that are being thrown. I mean, Kobe can't even get them down fast enough. And I'm sure that Brittany is equally feeling such a level of comfort knowing what she's going to be able to go back to this family with, and that it is about wrapping around our families. And so I really want to thank the community for participating today, throwing out your ideas, being part of the conversation and the discussion about well-being and not about what's not working well. So I just want to thank you.
Yeah, like Christian said, it takes a village and then some, right? Great. We have some next steps. Obviously, Brittany, we know you're still early with the referral, but we'll try and get you all the information from the chat if you didn't get it. And then a CFT to be determined. Father Strong is available if you want to make that referral, in addition to the programs that Dr. Mohammed had mentioned.
I'm excited to go back on Monday and bring all these amazing resources, especially, the family's so eager and really was willing and excited to get tools and get linked to the community. So I'm really excited. Thank you guys for that. I appreciate it.
I'm just so full by what I saw this morning.
Thank you, Brittany and Deb, for bringing this referral to the attention of the roundtable. This is a perfect example of having a rich discussion and around supporting a family where removal was not being considered, but intervention is necessary. So thank you all for.
There is consensus at DCFS that more needs to be done to increase equitable outcomes for Black families. Further, there's been a commitment of time, effort, and resources made by our leaders toward this goal. In addition, DCFS is invested in racial equity champions, as you heard about, and they exist in many of our offices. We really engage in courageous conversations with child welfare staff to prepare them for deeper conversations about community supports and alternative interventions while keeping children safe. Another word that has been a theme throughout the day is intention. So springing from leadership is the explicit intention to do something. We're committed at DCFS to take both short and long-term action to increase equitable outcomes for Black families in Los Angeles County, and this team specifically within our Lancaster community. This includes our own ongoing engagement with community through our ERDD advisory committee, as well as pilot projects such as the ones that you heard about from Zellery, 40X, and Blind Removals Project. One of the biggest components to this work is community collaboration. It's probably the heart of the effort. We in the Lancaster office understand that we cannot and probably should not do this work alone. Supporting families by ourselves has proven to have outcomes that perhaps we didn't intend, but perpetuated. It's a proverb, and somebody mentioned at the video, it takes a village to raise a child. And it means that an entire community of people must provide for and interact positively with children for those children to experience and grow in a safe and healthy environment. This means that families need natural community supports to turn to when they're struggling and in need of help. And certainly a system the size of DCFS is not a natural support. As such, and as we saw in the video, we continually strive to bring community to the table. Some of our partners are here today. And for this collaboration to be authentic and meaningful, we also work to address power imbalances and create courageous and brave spaces for our community partners to engage with us in these efforts. Another piece of the puzzle is our core practice model and model fidelity. It's at the center of DCFS involvement that we see our concern for child safety. Utilizing our core practice model, we're committed to engaging in family-centered conversations about safety worries that do not label families or use coded or racist language. Instead, we focused on how we can collaborate with families and the community to address safety worries and keep children safely at home. The next piece is our data, which Wendy will share with you very briefly, or in just a moment. As we continue, we use data routinely to understand how our practice is changing, to identify additional areas and opportunities for growth. And it's really essential that we reflect on what's working in our practice so we can do more of that, and that we identify those areas where we can do better, and that we commit to that and continue to track and adapt in our practice to elevate our practice, to continue to elevate and uplift the voices of the community, and to better support our most vulnerable children, youth, and families within the community. Lastly is coaching and training, and because it really is all intertwined, it connects to the first point around leadership. As one can imagine, issues of child safety, assessment, community prevention, collaboration, social justice, and even identifying and tackling our own implicit biases are complicated, to say the least. To support our staff in understanding these core concepts and the interplay between them, we've invested in monthly coaching. We as an agency have invested in monthly coaching and training opportunities. And beyond that, in Lancaster, our leadership team cares deeply about this work. Each of us takes ownership of the work. We believe in it with our whole hearts, as Lisa had said. Barack Obama is quoted as saying, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." And so as leaders in the DCFS Lancaster office, we really own that. And so we don't shy away from those difficult conversations. We don't other the coaching and training and outsource that. We will tackle it, and when we see it, we will call it in and call it out and create space to identify when we see something that isn't resonating and isn't benefiting our families. And so it's through those courageous conversations that we continue to shift the needle, tip the domino, and be the change.
I always wonder why people give the data part to me. I'm good with data, but it's the good news, and I feel like everybody should want to be the person who celebrates the good news. So I get the opportunity to tell you what Lancaster has accomplished through all this hard work. What you're looking at now, and it is fairly small, at least on that screen to see, is in the red boxes you see the number of referrals that the Lancaster office received in the baseline period at the furthest left, and then pre-implementation, year 1, and then year 2 going to the right. And as you can see, the baseline had a high number of referrals. Pre-implementation included some COVID periods, so the referrals came up, but they are clearly on an upward trend right now that the sort of COVID impacts have lifted and children are back in school. So we have universally throughout the state seen referrals increase. But what I wanted you to actually see is the orange bars that are next to the red. Despite that sort of downward and then upward trend in referrals in the Lancaster office, we see only one trend line for the orange boxes, which is a downward pointing trend of the number of Black children entering foster care in the office. And so while we were maybe skeptical or holding off some of our celebrations initially, not wanting to celebrate too hard in case those lowered entries were a result of COVID, I think we should throw on the throttle and fully celebrate at this point the fact that the entries for Black children in Lancaster continue to go down despite the fact that referrals are up. What's really important is that while the last data just really captures what has been happening for Black children in Lancaster, intentionality and the change in practice that you've heard these ladies explain today has changed the outcomes for everybody. It's not just Black children that are entering care at lower numbers. It is all the children that enter care in the Lancaster office at lower numbers. And that's because the change has always been about how we do the work, not about some ideology, not about sort of telling people what we want or hoping things to be true, but really about changing the day-to-day interactions that these folks are having with Black families, joining community in the efforts, and really finding ways to wrap around families as opposed to label them and sort of oppress them. So we can do this without compromising child safety as well. So these rates are really about recurrence of maltreatment. There might be concerns that if we are investigating families but not removing them, that maybe those children are at risk of being reharmed. But what you can see here is, again, a really clear trend line of a downward pointing trend in recurrence of maltreatment. So not only are children not experiencing recurrence of maltreatment in the Lancaster office, but somehow being really clear about our safety worries and wrapping community around that has made us better at preventing re-abuse. And I think that that's worthy of celebration as well. So you've heard everybody that spoke before me mention that the work's not over. I'm really heartened to hear that. You know, we don't just sit around and celebrate and pat ourselves on the back, but we look to what's to be done next. And so these rates that I'm showing you now are about permanency within 12 months of entry into foster care. Children that do need to enter the foster care system have a very difficult time. It's not a pleasurable experience. It's very hard. And so a part of our mandate as child welfare people interested in the well-being of families, is to get children home as quickly as possible. And so we see that the rates in the Lancaster office for Black and Latino and white children tend to be below about 30%. And so that means about 3 out of every 10 children that enter the foster care system in Lancaster are going home, and the others are staying in care for a longer period of time. And that's obviously something that we want to focus our attention to. So we have heard about dominoes falling. We've been hearing about them being pushed, and now we know the work that needs to be done forward. It's my pleasure to introduce Lindia Sincor to tell us how.
The tipping point happens when two key elements are present. First, everyone is at the table, everyone is welcomed, and everyone has a seat at the table. The second element is what I label the C factor. Everything we do, decide, and deploy into action must be done in the best interest of children. Children are innocent and deserve to dream and deserve our best. Children are innocent victims of adult actions, behaviors, and decisions. And if before making decisions, we would stop and determine how children are impacted, then it is my belief there would be no wars like the ones happening today, and there would be no discrimination against Black children. Children of the world are our children. And while DCFS is charged with the magnanimous responsibility of ensuring the safety of children who are brought to their attention, in the case of this disproportionality work, all of us have to be involved. And that's what Lancaster does weekly. They assemble all of us as one body of change agents for families. It is in that gathering that true change happens. To bring about this systemic change, we seek to achieve, let's examine 4 dominoes that must be present in our chain and that you've seen present here today. Domino 1, the cold-hearted truth. The truth can be hard to embrace when we want to believe something else. The data and the facts have been presented by who I call the Wendy Impact. She illuminates for us the purpose for addressing the injustice and one of the many reasons why we assemble here today. Every week, the Lancaster Roundtable convenes a team of thinkers, thought partners, and trailblazers who dissect concerns, digest facts, and deliberate the worries of the presenting social worker. There is no room for conjecture in these conversations. The team only deals in facts and truth, and we recommend resources and craft solutions that will provide the family with the tools that hopefully they use, and this will be their last contact with DCFS. The cold-hearted truth is that Black children make up 22% of the entire population in Lancaster, but 48% are still in care. That's the facts, that's the data, and that's the truth. The second domino moves us from truth to action, and that is the domino that we've all talked about today, the collaboration with the community. We have to do something differently for Black families. The systems that created these disparities did not involve all voices. Inclusiveness was invisible, and discrimination was the order of the day. In Lancaster, the triad of Lisa, Zellery, and the Queen, Dr. Arish Mohammed, seek out and invite members like myself from the community to meet weekly. They bring compassionate people and compassionate voices to the table and who must be committed to change. The challenge all of us must be involved in this movement is a movement for change to bring about racial equity for, yes, Black families who are involved in child welfare. Honesty is the order of the day. You heard Dr. Mohammed express her sentiment about the power of presence in this community roundtable. The community does have resources, and we have a voice. And when there is active involvement, a partnership is developed, and we can together make a difference for families. Sometimes the discussions are difficult. Sometimes the decisions are difficult, but the voices are valued. And we want you to join the movement for change. While many of you sit here today already involved in a movement, others of us can bring some more to the movement. Ask yourself, what can I do to make a difference? Who do I know that can contribute to this work? And remember, all are welcome at the table. Additional investments must be made and must be made available for smaller community organizations so that more are at the table. We need more Black-led projects at the table so that we simultaneously build an infrastructure that will sustain the systemic change we are trying to seek. Domino 3 is color. Because this is racial equity work, we can never eliminate race from the discussion. This disproportionality work is about combating the injustices that is in a system that resulted with too many children going into foster care. Comfortable spaces must be created for Black professionals, for families, to speak our truth. There is room for positivity, but not for political correctness. When we whitewash the truth, or we jeopardize creating innovative solutions for the families we serve. While all are welcome at the table, you must come to the table with who you are and come comfortable, come with confidence to speak your truth and engage in conversation. There's nothing wrong with embracing the fact that you might not understand what it is to walk in this world as a Black person. You may not understand what it is to be a Black family who is confronted with the reality that I am engaged with the child welfare system. That is their new normal. The issue of color is on the table, and all are welcome to participate in the dialogue. Register for a Dr. Alan Michael course to get over the fear of realizing that you have biases. And all of us must engage in intentional self-assessment and awareness daily. None of us are colorblind, but we must make it loud and clear and do not get it twisted. The color of your skin does not determine whether or not you can make a contribution. The color of your skin does not determine whether or not you're committed to this change work. The color of your skin welcomes you at the table because we're all a people of color. There is room at the Lancaster Round Table for all people, no matter the race, creed, or color. And Domino 4 is to celebrate. We talk about celebration with all this work that we have to do. But this work is going to take years. It is impossible to dismantle overnight the systems that have been in place for well over 200 years. A 5-year grant will not achieve the justice we demand. Put your army boots on and let's commit to change, no matter how long it takes. Because it's going to take some time, battle fatigue will set in. But that's why we must celebrate the milestones, the benchmarks, Penny Lane and the Rise Up Conference, because there have been accomplishments, but we are not there yet. The goal is to celebrate the accomplishments, but never become complacent. We must convene change agents like we're doing today to address the matter of the work of permanency. In the words of Arsenio Hall, let's get busy. Yes, we can. Yes, we will. We will be the change when all of us sit together at the round table, collaborating with the community, addressing the cold-hearted truth, speaking freely about color, and celebrating the milestones, the momentum, and the magic that we make together on this journey to seek justice and achieve racial equality. Rise up, be a domino, be in this chain of a chain reaction. Join in, together we can.
I told you you'd know why I brought her, right? I mean, without a doubt. There's nothing else to say. Thank you. We're honored and privileged to be able to share our work with all of you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.